Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back. It's Thursday, October 24th. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators, we are going to probably get into a lot of trouble tonight, or I will anyways. We've got a little bit of a surprise in the show tonight. We're going to do something we haven't really done before, but first of all, make sure you guys smash the like button and the heart button and check your notifications are on. There are all kinds of shenanigans afoot, and it's not just on one platform. I'm hoping that this message gets to the Facebook community. So this one is going to be a little bit Facebook centric. So it's probably going to get me punished. Not probably, it absolutely will get me punished. And we'll hear from Neil Oliver in a few minutes on exactly how I know for sure I will get punished. But that's just Facebook. X has been jiggling things around, numbers not making any sense. Definitely some suppression going on there on what people are seeing, especially our Canadian followers over there. And I got another strike on YouTube today and a video removed, which happened to be a video from 2023. The tail end of 2023, the last week of 2023. But yeah, they yanked another video. So we're probably not streaming to YouTube tonight. So this is going to be one of the last streams that will probably get out on Facebook. So take note of that, my friends there. I'm going to take some time and try and message directly the followers on Facebook with this particular episode. I hope they catch the segment that I'm going to play here in a little bit. But this is part of kind of the twofold that's going to turn into threefold. And where I'm going to get into so much trouble tonight is by exposing some things, telling us or sharing a story about Mr. Bill Gates and the trouble he's in. We touched on that last night with Brett. I hope you guys had a great time listening to Brett. So we'll start with, of course, Facebook, or pardon me, Rumble. I'm a train wreck today, guys. But Substack, last night's show with Brett Hawes was absolutely phenomenal. That's where you can get plugged into all of the backstories, all of the nuggets, whatever it is. But I definitely would encourage you guys to get subscribed to Brett. You can subscribe to him, and there's a link to that in my Substack. Just go click on it. Of course, the easiest way to find that is right here on the Conquer Censorship button on whatsupcanada.org. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about Facebook, how they are the existential threat to life as we know it, in my opinion. One of many existential threats. Who would have thought we'd ever be living through the things we are in our times? But we're going to cover a couple of stories that I didn't want to let fall through the cracks, but they're a little bit older. So this is a segment, we talked about this at the tail end of last week. And I wanted to bring this up tonight because we'll probably touch on it tomorrow with Bryce when we get to Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks. So we've got a jam-packed show tonight, folks, and enjoy the ride. I know Mr. Gates and Mr. Trudeau will not. So this is let's start with a little bit of banking segment. I've got a couple of other breaking news clips from today, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
Subject of today's announcement. Today, TD Bank pled guilty to multiple felonies, including conspiring to violate the Bank Secrecy Act and commit money laundering. TD Bank has also agreed to a $1.8 billion criminal penalty. Combined with civil enforcement actions announced today by other agencies, the United States will be imposing a total of approximately $3 billion against TD Bank. TD Bank created an environment that allowed financial crime to flourish. By making its services convenient for criminals, it became one. Today, TD Bank became the largest bank in U.S. history to plead guilty to Bank Secrecy Act program failures and the first bank in history to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. This is also the largest ever penalty under the Bank Secrecy Act and the first time the Justice Department has assessed a daily fine against a bank. As part of the plea agreement, TD Bank will fundamentally restructure its corporate compliant program at its U.S.-based bank, which is the 10th largest in the United States. The bank has also agreed to the imposition of a 3-year monitorship and a 5-year term of probation.
Furthermore, it includes proceeds tied to narcotics trafficking in Colombia, which flowed through TD Bank accounts.
Surprise, 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 right?
Anti-money laundering measures. The Justice Department's historic $3 billion penalty and criminal charges reflect the severity of these systemic failures, marking TD Bank's actions as some of the most egregious in U.S. financial history. TD Bank not only turned a blind eye to illegal financial activity, but actively enabled it, creating an environment where criminals could launder millions of dollars with ease. Shockingly, several bank employees themselves became complicit in these crimes, accepting bribes and facilitating illegal transactions. As we delve deeper into this financial quagmire, the parallels between TD Bank's missteps and certain governmental shortcomings become increasingly apparent. Just as the current liberal government often seems to prioritize lofty ideals over...
So I see a question here from Robino. When is this from Garland? And as much as it pains me to play a clip from Merrick Garland, this was last week where this came through, this ruling and this sentencing per se. But at the tail end, as we get through into a little bit more of this clip in a few more seconds, there's some a part of that story that probably didn't make it out in the rest of the news, and I think it's important for us to know moving forward.
For practical outcomes, TD Bank appears to have fallen into the trap of valuing convenience and profit over due diligence.
While the bank has started its remediation, it will continue to remediate and improve its anti-money laundering compliance program to ensure that the bank operates lawfully and safely moving forward. In addition to obtaining today's corporate felony pleas, the Justice Department has also prosecuted 24 individuals for their involvement in money laundering schemes that moved over $670 million in illicit funds through TD Bank accounts. So far, the Justice Department has charged 2 TD Bank employees for their involvement in one of these schemes. Pursuant to the plea agreement, TD Bank is required to fully cooperate with the Justice Department's investigation of the bank and any of its officers, directors, and employees. If the bank fails to do so, it will again be subject to criminal prosecution, in which the statement of facts that are part of the plea agreement may be used as evidence against it. Our criminal investigations into individual employees at every level of TD Bank are active and ongoing. As is the case in all corporate criminal matters, no one involved in TD Bank's illegal conduct will be off limits. We will follow the evidence wherever it leads. Federal anti-money laundering laws are designed to prevent criminals from using U.S. banks to fuel their crimes. Our laws dictate that the narcotics traffickers who flood our communities with deadly drugs cannot use American financial institutions to move their money. And our anti-money laundering laws dictate that a bank that willfully fails to protect against criminal schemes is also a criminal.
Bingo.
That is what TD Bank was, because it failed to maintain an adequate anti-money laundering program between January 2014 and October 2023.
Meanwhile,
so that's all I'm going to want to play with this clip. But the point of that was that TD is the 10th largest bank in North America, heavily associated with people that travel a lot because of convenience. And they're going to be having a lot of changes throughout their system. So, and the investigations are far from over, but what it's doing is it's also opening up the door on the other side, right? So, both sides of the fence are going to get nailed in that. And I think it's a good thing at the end of the day. But if you deal with a TD, I would have concerns about where my money was at and maybe prepare for something different. And I'm gonna, just before we pop in to the next video here, it's just a short one, but I got permission today, guys, on the night of the U.S. election. I was talking with Sean Parnell today from the Battleground podcast, and we are going to be restreaming their podcast up here with a star-studded group of people on to cover the U.S. elections, election night. So there's going to be Rich Barris, the pollster from People's Pundit. Obviously, Sean's going to be hosting. Wendy Bell is going to be there. Brock Schneider is going to be there, and a whole bunch of other people there. So, kind of, you guys are getting first notice of that on election night. But it's the times are changing everywhere, and I know we're tired, but now is the time where we got to, I know you're tired, but we got to do it anyway, right? So this is a quick little update from the UK. So it's not the end of the world in the UK, although it is dark, but it is always darkest before the dawn. And that's the same situation we're here in Canada, but we may not be getting the whole or the rest of the story. So this is a little clip to fill you guys in on something maybe surprising in the UK.
At the states of, well, I know many of you watching will be despondent at the states of the country, but I think there's much reason to be optimistic, actually. And I'm going to show you why in this video, as ever, backed up with stats and actual figures and data. First of all, just consider this, that if you compare the polls from October 2023 to October 2024, you see something very interesting. You see there Labour collapsing 16 points, the Conservatives down slightly too. But look at where the big rise in support has been over the last year. Reform UK up 14 points to 20%. Very telling now, the three main parties, just 9 points between them, between all three. When you look at the approval ratings of the various party leaders now, as I previously highlighted, just look at this trend, and this is election map, the approval rating average as things stand. You see there, a higher percentage of the public now approve of Nigel Farage over Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer, and fewer voters disapprove of Nigel versus Sunak and Starmer as well. Also, a pretty major poll has been held as things stand in terms of this MRP poll by Electoral Calculus. And you see the quote there from this analysis that these figures suggest that the Conservatives would do better at an immediate general election under Jenrick compared with Badenoch. But in both cases, Labour would lose a large number of seats and the Conservatives and Reform UK would gain seats. Now, under both scenarios, whether it's Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick that take over the Tory party, as things stand, Reform would see a five-fold increase in seats from 5 to the mid-20s. But look very clear, the trend over the last year, a huge increase in support for Reform and Labour down massively. Do let me know what you make of that in the comments below, please, guys. We'll, of course, keep bringing you all the latest on this and much more, so please do like this video.
All right. So the gist of that I wanted everybody to get was that, so over there, Nigel Farage is kind of the conservative hero, the popular voice. And he went from being basically run out of the cabal government in the UK to coming back. And now he is probably going to, in the near future, if they were to hold elections right now, like Trudeau, the trouble Trudeau's in, so Starmer. And so the people are rising in the UK and getting behind common sense Nigel Farage more and more so. But I wanted to touch on a couple of comments here. One from Andre. We would be foolish to think this is the only bank doing this. No, you're correct. And I wanted to follow that up with Carly's great question. This has been going on for decades with most of the banks implicated and exposed. Why now? Saving their bacons. CYA. Cover your ass. BRICS is exposing the system. The redrawing of the lines. I'm not saying that BRICS is good. I'm not saying Russia, China, anybody good, but it's becoming the popular kids on the block, shall we say. The oligarchs have been too greedy, went for too much, tried to rule the world too much. And so now they are going to be trimming the fat, shall we say. So some people are not going to survive the collapse and the recovery of their own system. So, yeah, that's kind of why now. They have to sacrifice some in order to make this shift to the conservative side believable of things, right? People are learning too much. We have educated too many people. We are not going away. The truth is being exposed. So random acts of journalism are becoming more prevalent in the actual news and media, and they're starting to catch up on that. And so, I mean, we're going to start seeing it here too in Canada. I believe we're going to start seeing random acts of policing and enforcement because the system won't, the people won't accept the difference, right? There's going to be a big push to justice, and I mean, we've been screaming that for a long time, and it's going to take some work, but I think that those days are coming, and Bill Gates is going to be a big part of that justice, and we're going to do a really long segment. Lone Arnie here, I see you've got some comments there about the breaking news. Yeah, we're going to be taking a really good look at that, and I'm actually going to do some narration of a video. That one was kind of a surprise. It wasn't in the plan, but I decided to run it anyways because tomorrow's Friday and I won't get a chance to do it tomorrow. But first, we've got a couple more little ones to get through here, guys, and then we'll get to exactly why Bill Gates's nightmare has begun. So we're going to go to Montreal. And this, guys, is something that I mean, most of us here would be able to say, I told you so to the rest of the country. But again, random acts of journalism, the unsavory stories are starting to make the news.
Students at Montreal's Bedford Elementary are facing a big change. More than half of their teachers have been replaced. 11 are suspended, accused of exacting physical and psychological harm on staff and students. In a 90-page government report, investigators allege a group of teachers they call a clan created a toxic atmosphere in the school since 2016.
A clan.
The report cites other teachers who say they saw some of them pulling students by the ear and in one case pushing a student to the ground. It also alleges some teachers called students with learning disabilities lost causes.
Les professeurs n'étaient pas contents, lui criaient dessus.
Celia Ngulu says her son was often yelled at by one of the suspended teachers, told he had to catch up on his own after being sick. Now, the situation at Bedford has become political.
There is an issue with the respect of the law and secularism.
Quebec's law, known as Bill 21, requires government employees, including teachers, to apply religious neutrality in all aspects of their job. The report notes the majority of the teachers now suspended originally come from North African countries like Morocco and Algeria. It doesn't mention their religion, but says the school is in an area with a large Muslim population.
We have a responsibility to look into what could be done to strengthen this law in relations to Bedford.
J'étais choqué.
I was shocked, Premier François Legault says.
Des concepts religieux islamistes.
He says the teachers tried to bring religious Islamist concepts into the school. The investigators did find cases of teachers praying in school, but in most cases, not around students.
This is not a mere small accusation.
Members of Montreal's Muslim community say they feel targeted.
What does that have to do with their faith? It has to do with the personality of the teachers and with their teaching methods.
The 11th.
This is just the beginning of what we're going to be seeing of this, guys. But it's interesting how there's this Muslim ideology is committing the crimes against 11 of them. That's not just an isolated incident. Given where they're coming from, you can expect there to be a whole lot more of this if it's a cultural or ideological thing. Where does how far do we let this go? And then you've got the other lady there kind of defending them being targeted because pretending that they're being targeted, that just because they're Muslims now it's in the news. So you've got this political Islam from both sides, literally from both sides. All right, this is a last second addition to the panel tonight, but this is incredibly ironic. That's the only way I can say. This is on the level of ironic of Sinead O'Connor. Isn't it ironic? Don't make me sing, but yeah. So this is from Andrew Bridgen. I've had to come to Russia to bring up topics I would be heavily persecuted for back in Australia. Port Hedland councillor Adrian McRae, who has bravely been making the noise about COVID, the beer jab harms and paying a heavy price, goes to Russia to speak freely. We've seen this before, and this is relevant now. I recognize the experience he describes. Governments around the world are in lockstep about this issue. Same playbook, and this is where it leads. Russia becoming a haven for free speech. Listen to this and tell me how foobarred we are given what you guys are going to hear. I think what's the next.
I've had to come here to Russia to actually bring up the topics of things that I would be heavily persecuted for back in Australia. I'm currently in quite a bit of I've created a bit of controversy in Australia because we've discovered some scientific evidence of contamination in our injections from the COVID-19 vaccination shots. And again, we're not talking with any opinions or anything other than verified science. And of course, just for me bringing this to the attention of our Prime Minister and our local state government leaders, the premiers, and all the health ministers across the country, rather than allow this discussion to take place, the media, the mainstream media, and the government has, of course, attacked me. And again, the usual smear is I'm pro-Putin, in the hope that this slur will be enough to make anything that I say across Australia be viewed as some sort of conspiracy or lie, which is quite frightening because we now have a situation that we know that these medical interventions in our COVID-19 response are actually causing some serious illness and causing a lot of harm to Australians. But the fact that we no longer have any sort of semblance of free speech in our country, I have to come here to Russia to talk in a mainstream way because such a thing would never be permitted in Australia. I've had to.
And that's exactly where we're at. That is exactly where we're at. So now we've got the appetizer is up here. We've got a few minutes with Neil, and this is where the message goes out to our Facebook friends and family. You guys have got to get plugged in elsewhere. When they shut down our ability to communicate, they really begin to control the world. And I have no doubt that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, especially after watching this clip from Neil here that we're going to see here right away, that we're in a large part in the mess we're in because of this organization called Facebook, and we need to get off of this. And then we're actually going to cover some of the Bill Gates trial. We're going to play the whole thing. I'm going to narrate the Dutch part for you guys. I'll do the talking on that. And but yeah, here we got Neil Oliver. Probably messing up my computer panels, my screens, my windows, everything's all messed up today on me. Part of this is because the tools that I use did an upgrade, and now everything is misplaced for me. So I'm kind of scrambling today, you know, like if somebody goes and rearranges your kitchen or your toolbox. But yeah, this is the part. This is the part that I hope our Facebook friends and family get my message the most from. We need to, and if you're already plugged in on Substack or one of the other platforms that we're on, thank you, because you guys will be far better equipped to get through what's coming next. So let's hear from Neil.
As the days and weeks tick down, to the November election for the next US president, it's becoming more and more apparent that it's freedom of speech itself, the US Constitution, the First Amendment, that is the last obstacle to the total control of the information flow and supply desired by the oligarchs, that group of self-appointed individuals that seems to have decided that the right to control the narrative is theirs. Watch this clip that has surfaced in the last few days.
Say your uncle in like Ohio said something about like Kamala Harris is isn't unfit to be a president because he doesn't have a child. Okay. That kind of shit is automatically.
Meet Jeevan Gowali, a senior software engineer at Meta.
Are they doing a good job protecting our democracy? Because I've been seeing these right-wing groups like setting up Instagram accounts or Facebook accounts for that matter, right? And just start posting disinformation, be like, oh, like Harris is like blah, blah, blah.
That's all going to be demoted 100%. The civic classified is from.
It's becoming unavoidable. It's becoming impossible not to question where these social media platforms came from in the first place, what the motivation originally was behind their creation. We were invited in the first place to think of something like Facebook as just a free for all, a forum for the sharing of information. Essentially, unmonitored, just somewhere that people could go, put up ideas, share thoughts. It's becoming harder and harder to overlook the possibility that the intention always was that these would be means by which flow of information, access to information could be manipulated.
Would the person who posted that would he be notified that
the person would not be notified? But there's these things that we collect is like if a bunch of items that if at least a couple of items that a person has created has violated civic classifier, and they're also red listed.
It doesn't have to be particularly obvious and in your face. It's now about selecting without people knowing what they don't see, what they don't hear. And if you don't see it and you don't hear it, and if the person putting up the information is unaware
Rabina,
that the opinion they've shared is being artificially suppressed, then that manipulation of the narrative is all happening out of sight.
But is that called shadow banning?
Shadow banning, yeah.
Okay, so they will be shadow banned.
Correct.
They will never be shown. So they will see a dip in like impressions in engagement,
Yeah.
but they would not be like officially warned of the reason why.
Right.
And it begins to feel that that was the intention behind something like Facebook all along. And it was when people began to use it in ways that weren't pleasing, that weren't in line with what the powerful wanted. Once that became apparent, then the steps have had to be taken to take control of those fora. There are older and other references back to it. Elon Musk has in recent times referred to the way in which Zuckerberg's Facebook, Meta, played along with the appetites of the powerful.
My understanding is that Zuckerberg spent $400 million in the last election, nominally in a get out the vote campaign, but really fundamentally in support of Democrats. Is that accurate or not accurate?
That is accurate. Yes.
Does that sound unbiased to you?
No, it doesn't.
Yes.
So you don't see hope that Facebook will approach this as a non-aligned arbiter? You've allowed Donald Trump back on Twitter. He hasn't taken you up on your offer because he's got his own thing.
Right.
Do you think he will go back on Twitter?
Well, that's obviously up to him. My job is to, I take the freedom of speech very seriously.
I would ask, what's the point of having forums for opinion if there's an underlying dishonesty and a manipulation of the content that people are made unaware of?
That's why they have to silence us.
Are invited to disregard.
Because they can't shut it down.
What's the point in fora for opinions when some opinions are blatantly to be regarded as more equal than others? When in fact some opinions, as the testimony from this executive at Meta offers, when in fact some opinions are to be made invisible without the holder and holders of those opinions even being informed that their content is being put out of sight.
You guys have the ability to
Yes,
influence
they
the
do.
outcome of the election.
Yes.
They censor me.
Do you think Zuckerberg agrees? Good. You're going to help the Democrats.
Yeah. There's an underhandedness, a sleight of hand there that ought to give everyone pause if they have any regard for freedom of speech and free debate. The enemies of free speech are so desperate now.
Correct.
They've increasingly abandoned any hope of proving their opponents wrong, of taking on the arguments and winning.
They can't beat us in a discussion.
First of all, it was misinformation and disinformation. The implication being that what had been said was inaccurate, false. But then the final iteration of all of
the truth is we provided the missing information. Can't judge it disinformation or misinformation when it's the missing information, right?
that was malinformation, which is freely conceded is the truth, but the truth that the powerful would rather wasn't heard. Truth that doesn't help promote the chosen narrative. Now, that's just an underhand way of lying. The process now has reached the point where the only option left to the corrupted powerful is simply to shut people up, just to silence the opposition and the dissenting voices altogether. We had climate czar, so-called climate czar John Kerry at the World Economic Forum recently, describing freedom of speech as a major obstacle to government. It gets in.
Remember Klaus's speech in January in Davos, where they dropped the whole world-saving strategy and plan for two problems that they had to face: the rebuilding trust in mainstream media and the disinformation, misinformation. Those suddenly became the only problems on earth for the WEF Fourth Reich. And here we are.
In the way of government, people are free to speak.
there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
He's saying it right out there in the open, challenging the First Amendment itself, and he's not alone. The First Amendment and the entire U.S.
Comment here I want to touch on from Stefan. We all feel like this. They'll never shut me up. But here's what I'm worried about, Stefan. When they shut me up on Facebook, if we're not connected elsewhere, we're never going to talk to each other again. And this is, why this is a two-way street with this communication, this resistance, and these people that are stuck hanging out on some of these platforms. Like the Titanic is sinking, where we've got empty seats on a bazillion life rafts on other places, and nobody wants to get in a different boat. And that comfort zone that people have on Facebook, that's what's going to disappear. And we're going to leave those people behind, and it's not necessarily what they want, but I can't reach you anymore. That's the problem. They let about 100 people out of 37,000 people on Facebook. That's how many people they let me stream to. We are so red flagged that I'm losing my people. And so this is why I really wanted to drive this home. This isn't just me saying this. He's got some pretty great clips here on it.
Constitution are openly under attack in no small part from so-called Democrats in the United States of America. Great play was made of the allegation all the way back in 2016. 2016 feels like a different world now. I can't believe I ever lived there. But at that time, the Trump campaign, it was alleged, was colluding with Russia to interfere with and influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. Now, that allegation was subsequently found to be utterly baseless. It was a lie. And yet, it's worth remembering how angry was the response to the suggestion at the time. Arguably, the effect that had on the way that people voted. And Russiagate's still out there. Hillary Clinton, whose ruse it was, to this day repeats and refers to her assertion that Donald Trump colluded with Russia to get elected in 2016. And then it's an ongoing process. It emerged after the 2020 election that Facebook and others had submitted to a White House demand that the Hunter Biden laptop story be utterly suppressed, debunked. Senior intelligence officials, past and present, lined up by the score to dismiss the claims of its authenticity as nothing more than propaganda. At the height of it, Twitter suspended the Twitter account of the New York Post newspaper after its reporter Miranda Devine wrote a series of articles alleging dodgy business dealings by the Biden family, from which there was profit to be made. And by now we know the story about the Hunter Biden laptop was true all along, including the multiple emails about business dealings by Hunter Biden in Ukraine and elsewhere, detailing shares of profits to the big guy, being Joe Biden, when he was vice president, and other profits to other members of the Biden family and their associates. And the New York Post account was suspended, is actively denied now. It's pretended that didn't happen. But the facts are there. Now, was the suppression of that story, the Hunter Biden laptop, that content raising questions about the integrity of the Biden family, suppressing that content in that way, was that not justifiably to be described as interfering with the 2020 election? Might voters have come to think differently about Joe Biden and voted accordingly if they'd been more accurately informed about that family's business dealings at that time? But all the grandees, all the silverbacks of US politics, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the rest, in the last couple of weeks, calling for more and more internet censorship, more and more control of the internet, more and more ways of ensuring the internet serves them, being Democrats, and handicaps others, being Republicans. Trump was banned from Twitter at that time, although subsequently Elon Musk has invited him back. And it's not all obvious stuff. It's not all obvious censorship. You know, Elon Musk on record with Tucker Carlson talking about how Mark Zuckerberg spent $400 million nominally encouraging people to get out and vote, but really encouraging them to vote in support of Democrats. And the technology is sophisticated and nuanced enough now that people likely to vote Democrat can be targeted and encouraged to get out and vote, to register and vote and get out and vote. But people that can be identified as being likely to be Republican voters or likely to vote that way, they won't get the same encouragement to get out and vote. It's very, very sophisticated. The internet is now, as an unintended consequence of its creation, it's a major Achilles heel for those who would seek to control and manipulate public opinion. Which again, it makes you wonder, makes you ask the question, was the ability to influence and control the narrative really what underpinned the creation of part of the creation of the internet in the first place? That and harvesting more private information about each one of us than could possibly have been fantasized about by a Stalin or a Mao. And so now we have this latest implicating of Meta in seeking to use its massive power to influence what voters see and don't see on their timelines in the run-up to a presidential election. In this countdown to what some seriously warrant might be the last US election, it's increasingly obvious that free speech is in its death throes. It's being put to death as the last obstacle. The assessment has to be that free speech doesn't work for the powerful, not all the time, and so it has to go.
Nigel Farage has written to every Conservative councillor facing re-election, encouraging them to defect to Reform UK. He's called the offer a lifeline for councillors who could risk losing their seats.
I lost my
Deputy Leader of...
I lost my cursor. I couldn't find it. I was scrambling everywhere. So many great comments, but I really wanted people to realize how much we are glued to Facebook or dependent on it. It's our go-to. And I want to go through some comments here. It's not owned by the CA, maybe owned by the CA, i.e. Mark Zuckerberg is the front guy, but Meta, Facebook, Threads, Instagram is a bunch of them. So now I'm going to go through a bunch of these comments because this is kind of going to be an overlapping show with a lot of prepping. And this is kind of what I'm trying to get everybody prepped for, is as things get stupider as in the run-up to this election and the fallout from it, the insanity doesn't end election day. And I want to make sure not as many of us as possible are plugged in elsewhere. And there are plenty of alternatives. Substack, in any of my threads or any of my posts on Substack, there's a whole list there. Liberty is another great one. Odessa and Norbert over there. There are some alternatives, and we have to get off of Facebook and YouTube, because what ends up happening is if all of a sudden we don't get a notification, next thing you know, if it's not if we're not seeing it, there's so much going on, we get we just forget about it and it slips through the cracks. Lone Arnie, yes, Wimkin is an alt-tech social network that was launched in 2020 by Jason Shepard. We are streaming there live right now. We are there live Monday to Friday. It's got all the bells and whistles of Facebook. It's maybe a little rougher around the edges, but it's there, and he's one of us, and he's fought the Supreme Court several times. So if you lose your account, your digits, they don't keep any of that. They don't track any of your data. So that's why the government hates him and his platform. LGM.news, you can see a link right below there. It's also in the Substack. So one of the things that we did to prepare was, and this is why I drill whatsupcanada.org. I don't drill LGM that much, but that's just 2 clicks to content. Hit play, or choose your video and hit play. But we built those platforms out of their reach. So unless they take the power off and completely take the internet down, those are going to be the last places that they're going to be able to take off of the internet. They want to contort the narrative. There was some other comments up here that were really great. We are What's Up Canada or What's Up Canadian on a bunch of other platforms. Let's see. I'll pull it up for everybody just on a post and let you guys see. Take a screenshot of it. Go. Just, even if you have to go there one, but go pick a platform. Our headquarters, Looking Glass Media Coalition, Rumble, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We're on Spotify. We're on Wimkin, Liberty, Telegram, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. But these bottom 3, they're not going to be there much longer. As the Bill, C-293, Bill C-63, they're going to continue their trajectory unless we the people stop them. Great comment from Debbie. This was one of them that I wanted to get to. Maybe there are others like myself, and I'm grateful that there is, but I'm going to explain, Debbie, how I know so many people are missing. You get my emails. Thank you. You're on Substack. After you get home from work, you get notifications on your watch that you're on Facebook. So you go there automatically to listen to you and your guests while you make supper. If I happen to miss it, I'm able to catch it later. Grateful for that, Debbie. But here's the point I want to make is I know that we are still missing so many people because we've got 1,000 people on Substack. We've got 7,000 people on X. We've got a couple of hundred on Wimkin, 1,000. So I know that there is still 30,000 people plus of what we have left after they've taken away so many of the platforms already. That we have left, and this is part of that, being demoted. And I'm here every day with guests and going through all of this work, and 0.01% of the community is getting it, and this crushes me because I know that we're not going to be there that long, and it's it's part of that digital genocide, right? That Stefan Molyneux talked about. And once you're gone from social media, people just forget about it, and it's going to get harder and harder to stay connected. I think social media platforms will be destroyed, but business as usual for corporate purposes. They still depend on our data. We are the business, tracking everything we say, think, and do so that they can prompt us in the direction to the products and the marketing that they want us to see. So they are not going to give up the social media platforms, but what they'll do is they will regulate who has access to what. And for people in the news and truth space, nobody's going to get that. So my Facebook account, personal Facebook account, there's really nothing there except coffee memes. That's it. That's the only thing that people get a chance to see and engage in on my platform. So it's going to be very critical pretty soon. They're not going to shut the whole internet down. That's not going to happen. But they're going to continue to try to censor in an equal manner to the propaganda. They have a lot to juggle in trying to keep control of these platforms, because they still depend on the data. They want to know, and as long, so they have to cut out 50 million customers out of 400. They'll cut their losses and they'll run on to the next thing. So this is why we have to continue to get plugged in elsewhere. So yeah. Okay, so what is on deck next? All right, now we're going to get to Bill Gates' worst nightmare is coming true, guys. And I think you're going to really appreciate this. So I've got a 27-minute clip here. I've got to sped up a little bit so that it doesn't take as long to get through. Now, there's a bunch of this that's got subtitles for the Dutch sections, the Dutch portions. So I'm going to narrate those for the people that won't be able to read the small fine print on the bottom. But this is from the horse's mouth. And an interesting point that what Bill's biggest fear is, and this is why I believe he literally dumped $50 million into the election here this week to try and protect his name right here, right now, and the Democrats and the news and the media to keep everybody distracted, because that dude is in deep caca and he is worried about when the dam breaks, what happens next. So this clip, I don't really know this dude, this TVP Sean or TPV Sean, but you're going to get it all right here. So I'll read you the little clip and then we'll listen to the video. So for decades, Bill Gates has committed crimes in broad daylight, conducting experiments on vulnerable children in Africa and India, masterminding a global vaccine rollout linked to millions of deaths, all while advancing a chilling agenda rooted in eugenics and depopulation. So how has he managed to get away with it for so long? He's the major funder behind global health organizations, buying himself free reign to do as he pleases. He bankrolls mainstream media, ensuring they never report on him negatively. And he sits on the top of the globalist institutions, including the WEF, forming tight alliances with other powerful members of the cabal. Now, but a brave judge in the Netherlands has ordered Bill Gates to stand trial, and Bill Gates is terrified. So now this only came out 2 days ago. It's almost got 1 million views, and despite part of it being in Dutch, I'll read that out to you guys. You guys need to rejoice on this, because once this domino falls, then we can start to look for hashtag more justice.
For decades, Bill Gates has committed crimes in broad daylight, conducting experiments on vulnerable children in Africa and India, masterminding a global vaccine rollout linked to millions of deaths, all while advancing a chilling agenda rooted in eugenics and depopulation. So how has he managed to get away with it for so long? He's the major funder behind global health organizations, buying himself free rein to do as he pleases. He bankrolls mainstream media, ensuring they never report on him negatively. And he sits at the top of globalist institutions, including the WEF, forming tight alliances with other powerful members of the cabal. But now, a brave judge in the Netherlands has ordered Bill Gates to stand trial, and Gates is terrified. How do we know? Because Gates begged the judge to dismiss the case, arguing that if he's held to justice in the Netherlands, there'll be a contagion effect, his words, and the rest of the world will demand that he's brought to justice for his crimes against humanity. Before we dive in, join the People's Voice Locals community if you haven't already, and sign up to become a member of the world's first ever cyber nation that truly believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of your dreams. Visit joson.com and click the Join Us button today.
I got it sped up a little bit, guys.
Been hiding in plain sight for decades.
I sped the video up, so it's not his fault. He sounds like a
He
chipmunk.
inherited from his father, Bill Gates Sr., who served on the board of Planned Parenthood. This is the same man who owns a mosquito factory in Colombia and who regularly dumps his pride and joy on American population centers, and then orders the mainstream media to lie through their teeth about his role in the outbreak of exotic diseases in the same locations his mosquitoes were deployed. Bill Gates may think he's untouchable, but his time is running out. In the US, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has made it his mission to expose the crimes of the globalist elite, with Bill Gates at the top of his list. And when Trump wins in November, RFK Jr. will finally have the power to take Gates down like never before. But Gates' problems have already begun. During a recent trip to London, England, he got a glimpse of the growing anger against him, as crowds demanded his arrest for crimes against humanity everywhere he went. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, people are rising up against him in the courtrooms, demanding he face justice for destroying their health with fraudulent mRNA vaccines administered as part of the Great Reset.
Bij de rechtbank Leeuwarden ligt de grote en historische taak om de feiten met betrekking tot het project COVID-19, de Great Reset, waarvan de preferente werkelijkheid,
of which the preferred reality is an important element and to be entirely committed to truth-finding. The defendants are Bill Gates, Albert Bourla, Janssen, and Van Can, and Melinda Gates, Vin Diesel, Kamloops, Ruta, Haag, Dijon, Kuipers, Gommers, Hoekstra, Van Nieuwenhuizen, Cybism, and the state of the Netherlands. So
is representing victims of Gates, and he points out that the Dutch government has gone on the record admitting that the COVID pandemic was a military-grade psyop involving mass formation psychosis to control the narrative and influence the behavior of the public. According to the Dutch government, the psyop was about manipulating facts and misleading the public to spread Bill Gates and the global elite's preferred reality.
En raakt de kern.
Yes, Peter, what you say is very important and reflects the true meaning of this trial. I would like to point out that in a broadcast of Wakker Nederland on Zondag, Willem WNL, on the retired Major General and also former member of the Senate for the VVD, Mr. Van Kappen stated as a military expert, and I quote, "We are in the middle of a period of an information war, a so-called information operation. According to him, this is an activity of strategic importance in which facts and events are in such a way manipulated that they impose a preferred reality on your own population, on your enemy, and on the international public. According to Mr. Van Kappen, we are in the middle of that, and all parties do so. And what I really want to point out here is we are in the middle of a period in which we are dealing with information operations, information warfare, information operation. Yes, that's what it's called these days. That is manipulating facts and events to impose a preferred reality on your own people, the enemy, and on the international public. We're in the middle of that. A preferred reality. Yes, you manipulate facts and events in such a way that you project a preferred reality, a televised reality. We're in the middle of that, and all parties do it. Mr. Van Kappen clearly acknowledges that there's an international collaboration between public and private parties in which misleading one's own population is crucial. In the procedure, we have substantiated that the project that it is all about concerns COVID-19, the Great Reset.
The Dutch public is now being investigated by a court, and Bill Gates has been ordered to appear and defend himself against the claims brought forward by two COVID-vaccinated individuals who claim that Gates misled them and destroyed their health. Gates is terrified of the potential fallout if the European Union court finds him guilty, and his worst fears came closer to reality this week. The judge ruled against him, ordering him to appear in person. The walls are closing in on Gates, and we've got all the details coming up after this important message from our sponsor.
Yeah, so I'm going to see if I can skip this part, guys, and get to back to the away from the commercial. You guys can go and watch this on slow speed yourselves at any time from the link in the video tomorrow. This is awkward.
The word has got out, and everywhere he goes, the people are there to make their voices heard. Gates can't find any peace north of the border in Canada either. The Canadian people have had enough. And they are also calling for Gates to be charged with crimes against humanity. Gates' right to fear the contagion effects of the court case against him in the Netherlands. The people of the world understand that he is a global threat to humanity and he should be treated as such.
Nederlandse staatssecretaris.
And I know that at the time, Dutch agreed to introduction of European digital identity card without a mandate from the States General. The same digital identity document was discussed during the WEF meeting in Davos in January 2024. Not only the cabinet delegation went there on behalf of the Netherlands, but Maxima Zergla also participated as an envoy of the United Nations. We've been working the last 10 years on a thing, we call it the digital. It'll be known in our experiences in different countries to actually have this stack of things that are actually important. One of these is IDs, e-signature, digital ID, and that's extremely important. Even having a QR code legislation is very important. They want you digitized. She stated during the WF that a digital ID would be good for health and to see who has actually been vaccinated or not. So they're continuing. It's also good for health, who actually got vaccination or not. And with this, Maxima herself has exposed the lie and made it clear that the digital ID is indeed also about vaccinations. It's very clear to our clients in administrating mRNA jabs to the population is of great importance for the success of the project C19, the Great Reset. For further substantiation, I also refer to the summons in the main, particularly to Production 40, the Pfizer safety record of April 30, 2021. It lists the so-called side effects that, according to Pfizer, are a result of their injections. One of those so-called side effects is herpes zoster, which you can find on page 34. That may not mean anything to you, Charles, but that is shingles, the Latin name for it. There are not many doctors and medical professionals who identify that shingles is the same as the so-called monkeypox. This show's really going to get me in trouble. Or Mpox, which on August 14, 2024 was declared a public health emergency of international concern by Tedros of the WHO. Of course it was. So Tedros is actually declaring a consequence of the jab injections as a new emerging pandemic. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Welcome, Bill C293. Peter, doesn't this seem like a repetition of the narrative about so-called SARS-2 causing the serious and deadly disease C19? Now, Charles, when we talk about the global project C19, the Great Reset, we mean the project that actually started with the rollout of the so-called disease C19 and the mRNA injections that go with it. The misleading vaccination project was started in the Netherlands on January 6, 2021. In this first phase, about 70% of the population in the Netherlands was injected with these mRNA injections. Now the project is entering a next phase, and what is happening now is the effects of the previous injections are being used to mislead the population again with a fear weapon and thus continue the preferred reality. Bingo. What is shocking here is that there is no proven health benefits to the injections, so that no one should not speak of side effects, but rather of main effects. The pathogenic, deadly C19 mRNA injections actually do what they were developed for. Peter, what do you mean by that? Well, Charles, I understand the seriousness of your question. I have nothing but a serious and very disturbing answer for you. It's if the C19 injections were not developed for the benefit of public health, then you have to conclude that we are dealing with something very different here. That is not only what our clients say, but also that the very renowned American lawmaker and drafter of the American regulations for the implementation of the UN Bioweapons Convention, Dr. Francis Boyle, says. He leaves no room for misunderstanding that the C19 injections are weapons of war. He speaks of a warfare weapon with gain-of-function properties. The FDA was involved in the development of the C19. The offensive biological warfare weapon, and today as we speak it has been the FDA that has approved all of these C19 jabs. So they helped develop the weapon, and now they are approving these so-called jabs. The Pentagon Defense Advanced Research Program Agency that envisioned and funded this technology, these RNA, they give you particles of C19. They get injected into your body. They're injecting into you body particles with an offensive biological warfare weapon. We can conclude that the continuation of a false story in a preferred reality explained to the people continues without any significant resistance. The people hardly resist. They're still lining up by the tens of thousands. The lured in court has a major task of thoroughly investigating the facts regarding the C19 Great Reset, of which the preferred reality is an important element, and to be entirely committed to truth finding. Our clients want this to be fought for in the courtroom. Yes, Peter, I fully endorse the seriousness of the situation. Developments are also moving very quickly. One of the important and recent developments should certainly not go unmentioned. The vast majority of people, especially in the EU, are not aware that the project is running at full speed and that they still have a lot of this injection suffering to come. The European Commission, over which the people of the EU have no democratic influence whatsoever, is financing a very questionable project, which will be launched publicly in September 2024, next month. The so-called, I can't say that, UVA-BECO project, which aims to provide EU member states with plans and strategies to persuade people. How do you program them, right? To have these injections regularly, and to note, for life. Part of this is a digital vax passport. The main proceedings we speak of in the context of certificate of VID COVID, which is clearly the true meaning of the word COVID. So yes, so next month, September 2024, the EU will start in Greece, Portugal, Latvia, Poland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany with testing and improving their strategies at programming. They're regularly injecting as many people as possible with these injections. In this established preferred reality, this doesn't exist, and therefore the mainstream media isn't mentioning it.
Yeah, beter than Arno.
You have deviated a bit from my first question about the status of the trial. What is the next step in that? Charles, let me say this about it. We didn't deviate from the first question, but that really has to do with the extremely important changes and the continuation of the project C19, the Great Reset, which Trudeau's fully committed to. So we didn't want to leave that unmentioned. In any case, with regard to the incident side trial, Peter already said it. In the main trial, a number of the defendants have submitted their answers to our summons to the court. However, there is one defendant who has not yet responded to our summons, and that is Mr. Gates. He has raised the jurisdiction of the court in a so-called incidental procedure. He has stated that the court in the Netherlands has no jurisdiction over him. All documents of the procedures initiated by Bill Gates are listed in full on the website of the Foundation Rectop. We have provided on behalf of our clients a well-founded defense against Bill Gates's claim. The Leeuwarden court ultimately ruled in an interlocutory jurisdiction that the parties must appear in person before the court on September 18, 2024, and that this incidental procedure will be heard orally. In other words, Bill Gates is expected to appear before Leeuwarden court with his lawyer, where they will be given the opportunity to explain their position orally. It's Bill Gates who requested such an oral hearing. Our clients joined in and initially wanted 4 hours of speaking time. Well, it has become clear by now that we will not be given this time, and the court intends to complete the entire hearing in just 1.5 hours. Within this limited time, which will be available to personally address the judge and explain to the court how, among other things, Bill Gates has misled them and completely ruined their lives.
Bell explained, Gates argued that the judge has no jurisdiction over him. But last week, on October the 16th, the judge issued a ruling against Bill Gates. Because of Gates' work with the WHO and the WF in the Netherlands, the court does have jurisdiction over him, and they are demanding he appear in person to defend himself. The charges against Gates and the cabal could not be more serious. The Dutch understand that they are dealing with a criminal operation which intentionally poisoned the bloodstream of humanity with a view to reducing the global population.
Over het wereldwijde project COVID-19.
Now, Charles, when we talk about the Great Reset, we mean the project that actually started with the rollout of the so-called disease, C-19, and the mRNA jabs that go with it. The Misleading Vax project was started in the Netherlands on January 6, 2021. In this first phase, about 7% of the population in the Netherlands was injected with these C-19 injections. Now the project is entering a next phase. What is happening now is that the effects of the previous C-19 jabs are being used to mislead the population again with the fear weapon, and thus continue the preferred reality. And we're seeing that here in Canada too. Bonnie Crombie, right? What is shocking here is that there's no proven health benefits to the C-19 injections. None. So that one could not speak of the side effects, but rather of the main effects. The pathogenic, deadly C-19 injections actually do what they were developed for. Peter, what do you mean by that? Well, Charles, I understand the seriousness of your question. I have nothing but a serious, which looks like we got a bit of a repeat on this section here, guys. They were not right. So let's. Looks like they've got a double overlap in this.
Future. How do we know? Because he's already, if we the people let him gain more power through the Great Reset, we can be sure he'll do even worse in the future. How do we know? Because he's already telling us about his plans, complete with a telltale smirk on his face.
You just referenced intentional pandemics. Do you harbor any doubts about the origins of COVID-19?
No, the evidence is very clear that it's naturally caused. It's a bad virus, and we're going to have natural epidemics, and sadly, we may have some unnatural epidemics in the future.
Here at the People's Voice, we are determined to continue.
All right. So the insanity is unsustainable, right? We talk about that quite often, and being prepared for the next wave of this insanity is part of it. And so I think that we are only really at the start of the beginning of accountability for all of this. But the biggest reason why Bill Gates is resisting this is he is afraid of the when one country does it and finds him guilty and demands justice, the next one will, and the next one will, and the next one will. So Bill Gates is mortally terrified right now. So wow, we went way over on what I thought for time. So I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of this. I'm going to have to do some extra shows over the next week because there's just too much going on. This is a clip from Pierre Poilievre from today. I thought this was relevant.
Jarring and deadly. Violent gun crime is on the rise across Canada, with big cities in the line of fire. Canada's largest police union says there's been a 45% increase in shootings and 62% spike in gun-related homicides in Toronto compared to this time last year.
The most important thing is...
And Trudeau's out there saying that he banned selling guns. To
keep repeat violent offenders in custody.
2 years ago this week, the Canadian government put a freeze on the sale of handguns.
It is no longer legal to buy, sell,
bag of
or transfer
meat and
a
bones
handgun in Canada.
In recognition of the ban's anniversary, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shared this message on X, saying in part, "We choose your safety over the gun lobby every time." That prompted the Toronto Police Association to respond to Trudeau, saying, "Your statement is out of touch and offensive to victims of crime and police officers everywhere. Whatever you think you've done to improve community safety has not worked."
A pretty bold statement. Yeah, absolutely. I think our members are absolutely fed up with the Prime Minister. To be honest, his lip service. He knows that it doesn't impact the crime in this city.
When asked if the Toronto Police Association supports Canada's handgun ban, their president answered point blank, no.
No. So the reason why I started with this, because this was kind of a little bit more breaking news. And I wanted to be planting that seed of preparedness. right? And preparedness, prepping, that means something very different for everybody. And how we think we need to prepare for what. I don't think it hurts to have additional discussion on that, because things are going to have the potential to change in such ways that we can't necessarily be prepared for. So, so much of what we have to think about preparing is not just us as individuals, but our communities as well. And why does that matter? Well, I got a little clip here from Sean Ryan and I was going to almost say Meg Ryan, Megyn Kelly, that I thought was important to think about coming into the U.S. election. And Sean poses a hypothetical that I think was incredibly relevant to what's coming up, and for people to be prepared in thinking about what happens if.
What do you think the final nail in the coffin will be?
If Trump wins again.
That'll be the end.
Yes, because they'll do the same thing they did the first time. Everything will be negative. He will be the devil incarnate. They will find their oppositional, media roots again, which they totally forgot during the Biden years. Hello, we have a whole White House press corps that didn't figure out he was being visited regularly by a Parkinson's doctor. Do you think they've missed that with Trump? My point is they had no interest in finding out anything bad about Joe Biden. So I do think they'll just drive more people away. But they're already dying. Their ratings right now in primetime, they're pulling in 500,000. I mean, I know you dwarf that in your numbers, and I certainly do as well. Now they get maybe 1/4 of what they used to get. They make no news. They're totally irrelevant. What was the last news Savannah Guthrie made?
I have no idea.
Of course you don't. What was the last news big interview Robin Roberts had? Who knows?
I don't ever watch it.
Who has more
Any of
influence, Wolf Blitzer or Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro.
It's just a new world. They're well on their way to the end.
What do you think?
So they're talking about the mainstream media mercenaries, the wash, rinse, repeat of the programming that they that they know, and this is why they fear us so much. Tomorrow's Trump on Joe Rogan's show, that is going to absolutely melt their brains, right? Another case in point, if we work together over the coming days, we'll have the most accurate, real-time election analysis with Rich Bears and Sean Parnell and Wendy Bell and Brock Schneider and all of those guys. The legacy media is dead. There's not a snowball's hope in hell that they can compete with that when we are talking about it together. But what can they do? Censor. What can they do? Make sure that nobody knows where it's at. Make sure that nobody gets a notification. Make sure that nobody is prepared. And these were some of the things, right? Why, this is kind of the underlying theme. Facebook, we're missing 30,000 of our people on Facebook. And I really want to help reach them so we can get together on places like Rumble or X, or they can at least get notifications from Substack so that they can be prepared to make ready in advance, because the shit is going to hit the fan, folks. And so we're going to talk a little bit in brief now over what prepping might mean to some people, and what we can do, and some things. We're going to cover some bases that people might not necessarily have thought of. Sorry, I got distracted by your comment there, Esky Dogs. Okay, now will I join Wendy and Brock's page, or Wayne that evening, or Sean's? It's going to be a whole bunch of us everywhere, making sure that the world gets to know the truth. So this page that I'm bringing up here, again, guys, everything's going to be in the Substack tomorrow morning. I'll put that link down below for everybody. Again, I want to keep harping on this, because this is what we need to do to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. So Jason Christoff wrote this really in-depth piece. This is going back a few months, and this is one of those things that just didn't seem to make it to the top of the news feed. It stayed in the queue, but when people were asking about prepping stuff the other day, I thought, okay, well, I'll start this conversation here. And I want to hear from you guys out there, the different things that you think about when it comes to prepping and that kind of stuff. And you know, exactly like this, canning for months. That's great. Lots of canned foods. And it's going to be a busy week. Wayne's going to be running his butt ragged. I will be joining Sean on Monday for some election coverage. I'll also be talking in the UK on Monday, and then the federal election here for the US election. It's going to be busy days getting everybody on the right path and eliminating some of the noise from the news. But Jason wrote this article about the Financial Collapse Prosperity Guide. So this is one of those things people are preparing for. You know, every Friday we're here with Bryce talking about the financial side of those kinds of things. So he wrote this little article. I've gone so long. I'll read the first part of it and we'll get into some of the points. I'll just give you the headlines of he's got 8 or 9 points to kind of stir the brain a little bit. Maybe it'll get people thinking about something that they need to overlook. He starts out with, I've been hearing that the big collapse is coming for 10 years at least. The truth is the markets always collapse on a regular basis. Those collapses are pre-planned by the ruling group to disempower the public, plus to empower themselves. And if you play your cards right, or at least try to, you can attempt to gain financially as the vipers at the top gain from their mentally defective social engineering of our world. So part of that is, you know, being where the puck is going. So he's kind of, you know, speaking from a position of money here. And I'm going to add this, like I said, into the Substack for deep research for everybody. Number one, if you need a car repair, an AC repair, hot water tank replacement, a roof replacement, fence replacement, if you need to repair anything on your house and you can afford it and it's not a luxury investment, meaning it's absolutely necessary, do it now, because the ruling group's next move in any of their pre-planned collapses is to print massive amounts of fake money, which devalues your savings and causes massive inflation. Doing necessary repairs now will save you money long term. So it's a sound investment strategy. I believe prices will double once again over the next 4 years, which is the strategy of our death cult, our demolition squad, of, you know, our young global brat demolition squad, death cult ruling group. I'm not sure where the link takes you, but I'll leave some golden nuggets for everybody else to find on their own. The goal is to make the average person so financially insolvent that they have to take up the government's offer to come live for free inside a 15-minute city, which they are simply modern-day concentration camps where only jab, starvation, genocide awaits anyone who gets mind controlled to believe that their left-wing social utopia has finally arrived. Sorry, wish I had better news for you. I would take the same strategy, avoiding the massive inflation as the criminals in power plan this new financial collapse and then loot the treasury for themselves plus their friends. Pretty familiar, you know, 400 million, green slush, 63 billion, Catherine McKenna, you know, Arrive scam, every other scam. But yeah, so they're enriching themselves as they loot the treasury. And most of us would take the same strategy with food and personal care products that you know you consume on a regular basis. Again, the same investment outlook should be applied to products that are cheaper now, as opposed to those same products doubling in price over the next 4 years. Guys, I ordered my Patriot Switch this morning because it's not getting cheaper by the month, and I want to make sure that I get to get as much of the best stuff as I can. And this stuff, as you'll see later on in a little clip a little bit further down the road, is my investment. I can't go and buy $5,000 worth of gold and silver, but I can buy other currency, right? Although semi-automatic and not fully automatic assault rifles are illegal in places like Canada and most other New World Order hotspots. You can still acquire shotguns and long rifles for hunting. Hunting is a good way to help cut food costs, of course. So in my brain, my brain being trying, thinking preparedness, I think of things like this. I get my mug out of the face, out of the title, the most lethal automatic crossbow pistol in the world. I thought about playing some of this video here, but it's just going a little bit too long. So for me, that is a methodology of preparedness. I cannot buy automatic weapons or weapons of any kind. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do have a fully automatic air rifle that is good for small game. So those kinds of things could be, at least as a minimum, deterrence. So a little bit more of a descriptive there on that, but you'll need to defend your property and your loved ones at least one time over the next 10 years. Be prepared. As for financial advice, beyond saving some money on personal product purchases and necessary repairs of your existing survival-based assets, think fire sale. The most insane thing that humans have been conditioned to do and believe is not buying cheap assets in a crash. That's why our human farmers coordinate these massive crashes. They run into the burning building and scoop up all the deals when regular folks are selling their wealth at massive discount prices. Imagine people running out of a department store screaming, "Don't go in there, everything's at half price." Wait until full price to buy, sell your assets at half price in order to be safe. That's how insane that they are. Yeah. So that's how most people react in a crash, and it's insane. If you would have put 1,000 in Bitcoin in 2010, 2011, you'd have 150 million right now. Even if you have a small amount to invest, some choice cryptos are on sale currently in today's crash. I'm not a fan of crypto, but if you have the ability to diversify, covering your bases might be a way for some to be prepared. Emery can also guide on gold and silver purchase as well. We've got Bryce for that. Stocks can be looked at as super good deals when a crash occurs. I do invest in mining stocks with the help of the team at the Dollar Vigilante. So the basic Armageddon precautions are always in play. As usual, if you're traveling, make sure all aspects of your travel are cancelable without penalty. Stop thinking that the government is there to do anything but destroy you, and react appropriately. If you think the media is there to tell you the truth, you won't live more than 5 years. Moving forward, stay as healthy as possible by reading the book How to Eat and Move and Be Healthy from Paul Chek. Get your kids out of school before the government brainwashes them to believe that freedom, healthy food, family, God, happiness, and nature needs to be replaced by slavery, chemicals, a sterilized and castrated trans population, Satan, misery, and science. Getting out of the big cities is a good idea, as these areas are slated by the ruling group to become lockdown war zones in an essential supply disruption scenario. Have 5 to 10% of your wealth in cash in case the bank machines go dry or the electric grid goes down. Have 5 to 10% of your wealth in hard asset gold and silver to trade with if the same occurs. Having your own homestead is the ultimate protection scenario with your own water, food, and electrical supply. Consider amounts. Consider compounds where 2 to 3 families have some living quarters on one homestead property. Stop eating all processed foods immediately, as there's a good chance they're laced with graphene oxide, which increases the state's ability to track you through wireless technology. Do not eat any food or take any medicine that the government and media says is good for you and that will help you survive the fabricated crisis of the day. Get as many foreign residency and passports as possible, potentially starting with a temporary residence permit in Mexico. The countries and areas getting the worst of these pre-planned attacks are Canada, Australia, the United States, and the entire EU. So that's a really quick 40-mile-an-hour flyby on what is some sage advice and some that I can't argue with. Even the graphene oxide, the tracking. We've covered so much of this. There is a ton of other links in there as well. Jason doesn't really talk for just the sake of talking. There's usually some meat to what he has to say. So, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on, I'm canning this or I'm doing that. Most of us, we've been talking about that for a really long time. getting our communities prepared is what it is. And I know all of this is easier said than done, Sue. 100%. I get it. But we've had some time. We've had a lot of time. And what I'm worried about is people that are going, I didn't know. I couldn't do anything. Well, it doesn't take a whole lot to do anything. I am getting the best product available in concentration. I buy extra. Given a point down the road, that is going to be worth its weight in gold, right? And I'm going to I got what I got here? 2 more little tips or ideas and things that people can do that aren't out of their reach. So this is a longer video. I'm not going to play this, but I am going to include this in the Substack, where this is a whole, they list dozens of things here that you wouldn't think about that will actually become priceless barter items as things continue to deteriorate and we pass the event horizon. It's not if, it's when, and how bad it's going to be, right? That was in 15 years as an accident investigation, that was kind of my daily living. Is I knew it was going to be an accident. It was just when and how bad's it going to be every single day. This is what I'm trying to get to people, and it's not that everybody has to do all of the things. This is why we have this community. When you see people in the chats here, this is why it's so critical for us to get elsewhere off of Facebook, so we can get more people into the discussion, right? Get more people putting their, hey, I can do this, or I can do that. I've got extra this. Who's got extra that? This is how we fortify our communities. And this little video here can make a whole community go a whole lot further if they know about each other and are talking to each other, if they're of the like mind. This is the things that we have to start doing. Localism is the 100% safe and effective cure for globalism. We have to start practicing what we preach. We have to start getting our people from the insane platforms and get them plugged into alternative things, right? Another little thing that I thought people might be interested in, if for no other reason than I am interested in, I've got a bag full of things that I've collected and gathered over the years. What can I do with it? That's going to become incredibly valuable. So what do you do with it? How do you purify it? I'm going to give everybody a little video on how they can solve that question. Right? In the right time and place, it's worth a lot more. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. So if you can't afford to go and buy a bunch of silver, maybe you can make some, maybe you can find some. So just wanted to start to plant some seeds about different things that we can think about. If people want, we can do a Saturday show where we dive into a little bit more into the details on some of that. I can show you, more physically some of the things that I've got in my little, stash of tricks for, preparation, shall we say. I can show you some of the resources that I've gathered and, that will help me and support the community, right? So, FYMM66. I can only guess what that means. But those links, you see the one scrolling across the bottom of the screen, whatsupcanada.substack.com. All of these links will be in there first thing tomorrow morning. All right, guys. So that's kind of what we do here. We skip across the lily pads, dodge a few swamp zombies, kick, throw some gas on the on the fire of the dumpster political situation, and so there's always a ton of information and a ton of community here. And this is what people, if you're new here, I want you to know is you haven't found an audience here. You've met a community. These people here are genuine people. This is an authentic media and community platform. This is symbiotic. I do this with you guys, and you guys do this with me, and you help us keep our communities together and at least loosely informed. So I didn't spend as much time on the prepping as I wanted to tonight, and that was mostly because the Bill Gates took over the brain pan, and I really wanted to get that out there. Again, all of that stuff is going to be in the Substack tomorrow morning. Tomorrow night is Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce again. And if you don't know Bryce, he is our resident financial whisperer from over on New World Precious Metals. And if you can't remember that link, it's right on top of our website at whatsupcanada.org. You can find it here. You can find my suppliers here for all of my barter and trade and survival goods. I am not worried about supply chain interruptions. I'll just say that much. So that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators, friends, patriots, family, prisoners and hostages too, I love you all. Stay mighty. We'll see some of you guys elsewhere over the next couple of days, and I hope that we've earned your trust enough, if you're new here, to come and join us again tomorrow night. Next week, Monday's going to be some humdingers, guys. It's going to be some humdingers. It's kind of getting interesting with some of this stuff, but that'll be an early show here, and then Sean Newman's podcast directly after that for an election night coverage special. And you'll get some news from the Freedom Train organization on Monday night as well. So yeah, busy times on the front line, at the tip of the spear in the information war. I love you guys all. Stay mighty. We will see you tomorrow.